오랜만이에요. Sorry for the delay, everyone. I was actually on vacation in the States for the first time in 3 years to see my family because of Korea's very strict COVID travel laws. And then when I came back, I saw this video that I had made and I decided that I hated it, so I completely remade it. And finally, we are back today. If you don't know, my name is Rachel, and this is video 9 in my Korean speaking series. Each of these videos builds on each other in grammar, so if anything in this video is confusing to you, then you might want to go ahead and check out some of the previous videos. And all of the vocabulary that you will need will be in the description box below. And if you're new here, just know that this video is meant to be paused anytime that you need more time to think for each question. I don't expect anyone to keep up with the pace of the video, especially if you are brand new to the grammar. I just don't want the videos to get insanely long. So if you need more thinking time, please pause the video as much as you need to. Today we're going to be talking about uy, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we are going to be practicing uy, the possessive particle. Uy often translates in English to of or apostrophe s, as in the book of Rachel or Rachel's book. I think we can all agree that when speaking, Rachel's book would be far more common than the book of Rachel, and thankfully this is also the Korean order as well. So for today we're going to think of uy as just apostrophe s. Now in order to make the phrase Rachel's book, we have Rachel, which in Korean is 레이첼, uy, and the word for book, 책. But let's go and talk about the 발음, the pronunciation of this uy. You will hear uy pronounced in several different ways. We've got, of course, uy. Sometimes you might even hear it as or e, or even sometimes i. This is all dependent on how fast you say it, where it's located in a word or a sentence, and also the grammar that's being used. This might seem kind of strange, but we actually do this all the time in English too, especially with something like the word a. In the sentence, I am a student, if I say it slowly, I will say, I am a student. But when I speak quickly, I am a student. The pronunciation of a becomes a. This isn't something we really even think about in English, but for Korean learners, this is quite confusing. But anyway, back to uy. When we use this character specifically to mean the possessive particle, then uy is usually pronounced as e. So Rachel's book becomes 레이첼의 책, 레이첼의 책. But something very important to note here is that I'm not your friend. It would be far more common in Korean to say something like Miss Rachel's book, which could be translated to 레이첼 씨. Now, she doesn't directly translate to Miss or Mr., but it's kind of the closest thing that we have in English to it. It's just something that you will add to anyone's name who you are not on a casual speaking basis with. But I personally prefer what my students call me, 레이첼 선생님, 선생님 being the word for teacher, or my personal favorite, 레이첼 쌤. 쌤 is a less formal, kind of more intimate abbreviation of the word 선생님. And I personally love it when students call me 레이첼 쌤, so that's what we're going to practice today. Okay, let's go ahead and get into some 연습, which is all about me. Starting with Miss Rachel's friend. For Miss Rachel, you can go ahead and use 레이첼 쌤. So you just need to add apostrophe s, friend. What do you think? 레이첼 쌤의 친구, 레이첼 쌤의 친구. And so for the following, you will follow this exact pattern. You just need to add apostrophe s plus the noun. So how about Miss Rachel's car? 레이첼 쌤의 차. Miss Rachel's house. 레이첼 쌤의 집. Or if you happen to know the honorific word for house, then you can use 댁, which you would generally use for referring to your teacher's house or your boss's house or grandparents' house, but I'm not too concerned about that today. So moving on to Miss Rachel's chair. 레이첼 쌤의 의자. Miss Rachel's computer. 레이첼 쌤의 컴퓨터. Okay, now let me introduce you to your new best friend, Sua. If you didn't know Sua that well, like she's just a casual acquaintance to you, then you would likely refer to her as Sua she, which if you remember, loosely translates to Mr. or Miss. But Sua is our best friend, so we are just going to call her Sua. So how would you say Sua's bag? 수아의 가방. 수아의 가방. And keep in mind that uy is attached to sua, and there is a space between uy and 가방. Okay, how about sua's car? 수아의 차. 수아's hat. If you don't know the word for hat, it is 모자. So what do you think? 수아의 모자. Alright, let's go ahead and try to make a full sentence. This is Sua's hat. We just learned Sua's hat, which is 수아의 모자. How about the word for this? 이것 plus the topic particle 은, 이것은. And the word for is, if you remember am, is, and are, is 이에요 or 예요. Because 모자 ends with a vowel, we will add 예요. 이것은 수아의 모자예요. If any of this grammar is unfamiliar to you, then you might want to check out lesson 1 to learn about am, is, are, and or lesson 4 to learn about this and that. But moving on. This is Sua's bag. 이것은 수아의 가방이에요. This person is Sua's friend. Can you remember how to say this person? 이 사람. Plus the topic particle 은. 이 사람은 is Sua's friend. 수아의 친구예요. 이 사람은 수아의 친구예요. Alright, let's try a different kind of sentence. Sua's friend is a teacher. Now feel free to pause here and take your time because I'm going to give a hint in about 5 seconds, so go ahead and pause if you want to try and figure it out fully on your own first. And here's your hint. 수아의 친구는 선생님이에요. 수아의 친구는 선생님이에요. Alright, and let's go ahead and wrap this section up with some final quick practice before we move on to adding uy to pronouns. Here are some short phrases, and let's start with teacher's car. 선생님의 차. Friend's cat. 친구의 고양이. Sua's chair. 수아의 의자. Friend's house. 친구의 집. Teacher's hat. 선생님의 모자. Sua's car. 수아의 차. Now, something we haven't really talked too much about are the Korean pronouns. In case your last grammar class was a long time ago, pronouns are just the words that take the place of a noun in a sentence. Like, instead of James went to the store, you can say he went to the store. In English, we have 7 pronouns: I, you, we, they, he, she, and it. Or at least, this is how I teach it to my Korean students. Pronouns also include variations of these like me, us, this, that, these, those, them, him, her, mine, ours, blah, blah, blah. This isn't an English class. Now in Korean, pronouns are not used as often as we use them in English. They're usually dropped from the sentence once it's established who you're talking about. Like, for example, James went to the store. He bought some milk, then he saw a ghost, so he ran home. In Korean, once we've established that the story is about James, we don't even need to add the word he. So now it becomes, James went to the store, bought some milk, then saw a ghost, so ran home. And pronouns like he, she, and they are often replaced with words like that person, those people, that guy, that girl, that student, etc. And when you're talking to someone, it's much more common that we would use their name or their job title in place of the word you, or just leave out their name or title in general. For example, if you're talking to your recent acquaintance Seunghan and you want to ask if he's a teacher because you can't tell by the giant chalkboard behind him, instead of saying, "Are you a teacher?" you can look him in the eye and say, "Seunghan is a teacher?" "Seunghan 씨는 선생님이에요?" Or just drop his name in general and say, "선생님이에요?" For this reason, unless you really want to, I don't recommend pausing the video to write down or try to memorize this chart here. My plan is to introduce these words in more detail as they become important to us in future videos, so I don't think there's any need to memorize these right now, but of course, do what works for you. If you're curious about these words now, feel free to pause here. But otherwise, I'm just going to briefly show you how we turn these pronouns into their possessive form using 의, and then we'll do a lot of practice using the words my and our, which are used a bit more often than other pronouns and their possessive forms. So essentially what you're doing is you're adding apostrophe s to each of these pronouns. Well, except for it's down here, which is technically it is. So starting with my, in order to say my in casual form, you will say 나 plus 의, which is 나의. And in polite form, 저의, 나의, 저의. Your in casual form is 너의, and in polite form is 당신의. Our is 우리의 or 저희의. Their, 그들의, his, 그의, her, 그녀의, and its, 이것의, 그것의, 저것의. Again, you don't need to memorize this chart right now, I just want you to have a basic understanding of how this particle works. So we're going to start with practice of just the word my in polite form right now, starting with my book. 저의 책, 저의 책. My computer. 저의 컴퓨터. My friend. 저의 친구. My bag. 저의 가방. Now let's talk briefly about the 줄임말, the abbreviations of some of these words. Normally, I don't like teaching the abbreviated forms in the same lesson that you learn something new, but in the case of these three right here, when it comes to speaking, their abbreviated forms are used far more often than not. So let's take a look at them. 나의, which is my in casual form, is abbreviated to 내. 저의, which is my in formal or polite form, is abbreviated to 제. And 너의, which is your in casual form, is abbreviated to what looks like 내, but is actually pronounced 니. So going back to the phrase my book, we originally said 저의 책, right? Now let's go ahead and abbreviate it. So 저의 becomes 제, 제 책. And I'll put 저의 underneath just as a reminder that this is an abbreviated word. So how about my friend in the abbreviated form? 제 친구. My bag. 제 가방. This is my bag. 이것은 제 가방이에요. 이것은 제 가방이에요. This is Sua's bag. 이것은 수아의 가방이에요. My friend is Sua. 제 친구는 수아예요. My name. The word for name in Korean is 이름. So what do you think is my name? 제 이름. My name is Rachel. My name, 제 이름, plus the topic particle, 은, 제 이름은. Rachel, 레이첼, is. Because my name ends with a consonant, we will add 이에요 or 예요. What do you think? 이에요. 제 이름은 레이첼이에요. But what if your name ends with a vowel? Let's try, my name is Andy. 제 이름은 Andy예요. Go ahead and try this with your name. If your name ends with a consonant, you will add 이에요. But if your name ends with a vowel, you will add 예요. And just a quick side note, while it is perfectly acceptable to say my name is in Korean, there is a bit of a more natural way to introduce yourself by saying the phrase, I am called blah blah blah. I haven't taught this grammar yet, so if you want to skip this part, that's totally fine, but if you're curious, I'll give you the sentence pattern, which is 저는 name이라고 해요 if your name ends with a consonant, or just 라고 해요 if your name ends with a vowel. Because my name ends with a consonant, I will say 저는 레이첼이라고 해요. But the name Andy ends with a vowel, so that will be 저는 Andy라고 해요. Alright, let's move on to the final part of the video that requires a bit of explanation, the word we. And therefore, by association, also the word our. If we want to say my house, we could say 제 집. This is technically okay, but it's not the most natural. Even if you live by yourself, it's far more common to take out my and use the word our. And this is because Korea has quite a strong sense of community. It's not just my house, it's our house. It's our school, our mom, and our dad. This makes sense for a lot of words. I mean, surely a lot of people go to your school, and it feels like a really close-knit community when you talk about our mom and our dad. And Korean really takes it to the next level when they say things like our husband and our wife. Now, it's not all nouns that you will say the word our. Of course, many words you can still say my. And you'll get a feel for which word uses which the more that we practice. I personally just think it's a really cool aspect of Korean culture that's embedded right there into the language. So going back to our chart right here, we are now going to focus on this section right here, which means we need to look again at the word we. We in Korean is either 우리 or 저희. 저희 is like the plural form of 저. It's a way of humbling yourself, which means it's a way of lowering yourself in status in comparison to the person who you're talking to. So when it comes to the word our, we then have 우리의 and 저희의. Now you could think of these as informal and formal, or casual versus polite, but really the difference between these two words is that 우리의 is when the person who you're talking to is part of the group you're referring to, and 저희의 is when the listener is not part of the group. To give a quick example, if you're talking to your coworker of the same company and you want to say our company, company being the word 회사 in Korean, you would say 우리의 회사. But if you're talking to a stranger who is not part of your company and who is perhaps older than you, or you want to be respectful towards and lower yourself in comparison to them, you would instead say 저희의 회사. I feel like explaining these subtleties would take a separate video, so I'm going to try to simplify it by saying that we are only going to focus today on 우리의. You might think that it would make more sense to stick with our trend of speaking in polite speech by using 저희의, but as I said earlier, 저희의 isn't exactly polite speech, it's humble speech, and there are a lot of little side notes to go with it that I just don't think are necessary for today. And plus, 우리의 actually is still said quite often in polite speech, and I think in daily life you will hear it a lot more often, especially as a beginner. So how in Korean might you say my school, aka our school? 우리의 학교. my teacher, our teacher. 우리의 선생님. My mom, our mom. The word for mother in Korean is 어머니, and mom is 엄마. Let's use 엄마 today. 우리의 엄마. Now the absolute final bit of new information that I'm going to give to you today is about dropping 의. For whatever reason, when it comes to 우리의 and 저희의, 의 tends to get dropped. 의 can actually be dropped for any of the pronouns, but for some reason it happens the most often with 우리의 and 저희의, like I would guess 99% of the time when you're speaking. So now instead of 우리의 엄마, we have 우리 엄마. And instead of 우리의 선생님, it's more natural to drop 의 and just say 우리 선생님. Okay, let's go ahead and summarize what we've learned today. 의 is like adding apostrophe s to a word. So, friend's book would be 친구의 책. Teacher's car, 선생님의 차. You can even add 의 multiple times in a sentence. Like, what do you think 친구의 선생님의 차 means? Friend's teacher's car. As for the possessive determiners, which is honestly a word I didn't know until I made this video, you're basically just adding apostrophe s to each respective pronoun. My in casual speech is 나의 and 저의 in polite speech. You is 너의 and 당신의, his, 그의, her, 그녀의, our, 우리의 and 저희의, and their, 그들의. As I said before, don't worry about memorizing this chart. I think it's more important to just understand how this particle functions. And also, if this is easier to remember, then don't even worry about the abbreviations for now either. But if you are comfortable with the abbreviations, then just a reminder that these three tend to be abbreviated into 네, 체, and 니. Even though it looks like 네, it is pronounced ni. And finally, 의 is dropped more often than not for 우리의 and 저희의. So finally, let's move on to the practice party. Here is the vocabulary that you will need, which we have learned in previous lessons, except for the word purple, which is 보라색. There will be 2 rounds. Round 1 will just be adding 의 to the words for the meaning of apostrophe s, and round 2 will be the possessive determiners, which is this chart right here. But we're just going to focus on my and our. So getting into round 1, 의 as apostrophe s. Oh no, that should be apostrophe s. Oh well. Friend's car. 친구의 차. Just a reminder that the practice party is always faster than the regular video, so please don't hesitate to pause if you need to. Teacher's book. 선생님의 책. Friend's friend. 친구의 친구. Friend's pencil. 친구의 연필. Teacher's hat. 선생님의 모자. This is the teacher's hat. 이것은 선생님의 모자예요. That over there is my friend's car. 저것은 친구의 차예요. Or if you threw in 체 or 저의 for my friend, that's also okay. That over there is Sua's house. 저것은 수아의 집이에요. Round 1, 끝났어요. Round 2, my and our. I will prompt you when to use our versus my, and I will be using the abbreviated forms 체 and 우리, but feel free to use 저의 and 우리의 if that helps your brain remember them just a little bit better. My friend. 제 친구. My car. 제 차. My teacher, aka our teacher. 우리 선생님. My teacher's car, our teacher's car. 우리 선생님의 차. Our school. 우리 학교. My friend's school. 제 친구의 학교. Our mom. 우리 엄마. Our mom is a teacher. 우리 엄마는 선생님이에요. Or if you happen to know honorifics, 선생님이세요. And now getting into some previous lesson stuff, my friend studies. 제 친구는 공부해요. My friend studies Korean. And a little hint, Korean goes right here. 제 친구는 한국어를 공부해요. My car is purple. Purple being the word 보라색. 제 차는 보라색이에요. My friend's company. Company was the word 회사. 제 친구의 회사. My friend's company is Samsung, which in Korean is 삼성. 제 친구의 회사는 삼성이에요. My friend works at Samsung. Works is 일하다 and at is 에서. Just in case you forgot. 제 친구는 삼성에서 일해요. And lastly, my name is. 제 이름은 blah 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 이에요 or 예요. And quick bonus, I am called blah blah blah. 저는 blah 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 이라고 해요 or 라고 해요. Excellent job today as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. 수고했어요.